everyone. Welcome again to the Dr. GV show. Today I am super duper excited to have a really special guest on our show. Her name is Erin Mac, and she is going to be talking about a topic that's actually really close to many people's heart, especially now given mental health and the state that we're in right now all around us. So a very, very timely topic, and we're going to be talking about anxiety today and demystifying the why of anxiety with Erin Mac. So welcome to the show, Erin.
Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to have this conversation.
Yeah, Erin, but before we even get into the topic itself, do you want to share with our audience a little bit about your background?
Sure. So I'm a business coach. I coach people on, well, I love to work with entrepreneurs. I'll work with anybody. And typically I work with people who struggle with some daily overwhelm and anxiety because it's very challenging out there. We've got a lot of stuff going on. But the thing is life is that way. And so I try to help people learn some strategies and tools so that they can go ahead and be prepared, if that's possible, for whatever comes into their life, so that they're not feeling like, oh, there's the next thing and I need to freak out about that. So in turn, they learn some strategies about life, like change is inevitable, it's happening all the time. How do I manage that? And so I work with people on that. What I like to say is I help people go from an external to an internal experience, from an internal to an external experience. And what I mean by that is I help people find in themselves their joy and what fills them up, what's fulfilling for them. And then they can go about the external sources coming in versus what a lot of people do, which is there's all these things going on externally that are stressing me out. And so then I have an internal experience, anxiety, overwhelm, depression, because of all these things going on out here. And what I want is to feel peace inside and then go to the outside. And so that's what I like to teach people, is how to navigate that peace so that they can be at peace regardless of what's happening outside of them.
I love that, Erin. And as I said, given the state in which everybody is right now, I'm going to walk through let's just talk about the word anxiety before let's just get right into it. Because one of the things that I think I shared with you in the pre-call, that I have anxiety. I can sit in a plane and as soon as the cockpit door closes, I start to panic. So there's a little bit of claustrophobia in there, or sometimes at night I'll wake up with feeling anxious. But here's what I think about. I think these terms of anxiety, panic, depression, have we overused them so much that we've lost our compass about, for example, sadness, depression? Like, where is the compass of, am I just feeling sad or am I depressed? Am I just feeling excited or nervous and I think it's anxiety or panic? So my question to you is, what is your definition of anxiety?
So my definition of anxiety is maybe a little bit off of what other people think. For me, what anxiety always has been, it's been the experience of trying to control all the things. And when you try to control all the things, and by all the things, I mean literally everything, you try to prepare for, oh, what if there's a disaster? Oh, what if this happens? Oh, let me run out and buy toilet paper and do all the things. And the reality is we cannot, right? We cannot control anything but us and the experience that we're having. Now, I know the reason that anxiety is close to me is because I had an anxiety disorder and I created it, and I know how I created it. And I spent years trying to figure out how I created it so that I could uncreate it and share this message with the world, because that is a miserable place to be. I was holed up in my apartment for nearly a year, debilitating anxiety, just couldn't go out, even sometimes to get food, just so distraught. And it came about through this process of going to see a counselor. And I had a panic attack in the first session. I had no idea what it was. I'd never had one before. And I thought, I feel like I'm 2 inches tall. I'm in the corner. I can't breathe, and luckily the woman that I was working with, she saw it right away. And she said, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Actually, no, I'm not okay. I can't breathe. I don't know what's happening. I feel disconnected." And so she began to explain what that sensation was and what was going on, and the whole, we're onions and we have layers, and clearly there's a layer that's coming up, and would I be willing to do the work with her? And I said yes, and I began on this journey with her to go through all the trauma things that had happened in my past as a child. And in doing so, I began to have this experience that was a bit Pavlovian. It was, I have a counseling session coming up. Let me have a bunch of anxiety about that all the way to the office. And then let me sit in the office and begin crying before the session even starts.
Yeah.
And then I walk in, I'm bawling my eyes out. So this goes on for months. And I finally look at her and I said, "When is this going to end?" And she says, "You want a date?" And I said, "Yeah, actually at this point, I do want a date. Can you tell me, when is this pain going to end for me?" And she said, "No, I can't tell you when. It ends when it ends." And I said, "Yeah, I don't know if I like this so much anymore."
Yeah.
And so as it went on, the tears did eventually stop. And what ended up happening is, we went through all that, the journey she wanted me to go on was literally from in the womb, in my mother's body, to present day. And at the time I was in my late 20s. And that journey, although somewhat fascinating and certainly painful, and all the things you would think, what I recognized as we continued to talk about the things is I began to have so many more symptoms of anxiety than I was any kind of relief. And so I began to try and figure out what was happening there, that that we were now just dealing with anxiety symptoms and not actually going after the root causes, which I've always sort of been a fan of. I've never, I like to do some Eastern or alternative type medicines because I like the idea of getting at the root of versus just dealing with the symptoms. And so about 6 months or so into that process with her, she said, "We're really not getting any work done here. We're just dealing with symptoms." And I said, "Yeah, I feel the same." She said, "I want to refer you to a homeopathic psychiatrist, and I want you to be open about what's going to happen and all that." And I went, and it was a 3-hour intake interview, and she asked me all the stuff. I have a degree in psychology, so I had taken every psychology test there was. It was basically a psychology test where, they try to trip you up a little bit by asking you the same questions. They want to see some continuity there. But also asking you some questions that, maybe are not mainstream, like, have you seen aliens, that sort of thing. And so I did that, and then she said, "I'm going to give you this remedy. I want you to wait 20 minutes, and then I'd like you to leave." I said, "Okay." So I took the remedy, I waited the 20 minutes, I left her office, got into my car, and my anxiety had lifted, I would say somewhere between 75 and 80% at this point.
Yeah.
So I recognize that there are several things going on in terms of anxiety, right? There is this control thing that we like to feel like we're in control of things. There's also a chemistry, right, in your body that can get out of whack. Um, and so in that process, and I've had moments where you look back on your life and you go, why these certain things? And I don't know, have you had that moment where you're just like, that person led to this idea, led to that book, led to this seminar, led to, and so I recognize at this particular juncture, all of these things are leading up to this moment here, right? Where it's like, I had that experience, I had the physical experience. I was able, gratefully, through homeopathy, to settle some of that chemistry. But then it's like life happens again. And so in each of these, I learned there is a chemistry to your body, and it is possible to use, many different ways to rectify some of those imbalances. But then moving out beyond that, how do I move forward? Because, it's still me having these experiences. And if I choose anxiety, and it is a choice, this is not going to be popular for me to say, it is a choice. It's not one that I'm not saying it's a choice and there should be blame or shame around it or any of those things. But I want to tell people that it is a choice and it is possible to choose differently. But there are some tenets that I teach from that are foundational to understanding that. And they're empowering, yet they could be taken as like blame, right? So it's like, the first tenet that I like to teach from is this, the dominant thoughts that you create or that you think are what creates your reality. And so when you continue to think thoughts about anxiety and go to those places, that's the habitual piece of our mind that likes to go to those places. The second piece is this taking personal responsibility for what you've created. And what that looks like is understanding that if I can create something, an outcome or an experience that I like or don't like, I can uncreate and recreate what it is that I want. And so these are the pieces that I teach because I want to empower people to understand that I know that the symptoms of anxiety feel very real. They are real, like heart palpitations, sweating, oh my gosh, I think I'm going to have a heart attack. I was there. Went to the emergency room numerous times thinking, oh my God, I'm going to die. And so I understand that they are very, very real. But I really want to impart hope that it is possible to take these very real feeling things and switch them around. Because I think a lot of times people will feel like, my body is sort of betraying me, it's doing the stuff again, it's making my heart beat fast and all that. And I want to tell you is the mind is in control of the body. The subconscious mind actually does control the parts, the heart beating, all this stuff, the blood flowing, all that. And so when we can understand how that functions, then we can begin to navigate that in a different way so that we're not beholden to the body. We can begin to go, okay, if I know the subconscious mind functions this way, then I can tap into it and I can give it different information so that I have a different experience. Does that make sense?
Erin, you remind me that when I have an anxiety attack, I keep Skittles in my purse. And especially when I get onto the plane, right? So what happens is I open the bag of Skittles, I scatter them around, and I start color coordinating. And all of a sudden it dissipates. Or if at night, a cold air, like if I go outside for a minute, it kind of shakes me up. So I like what you're saying around the choice part of it. But what I want to hear from you is you said something early in the conversation that you created your world. So tell me a little bit about that. Tell me about that creation, because I think if the audience can understand how you create that world, Then we can talk about how do you then uncreate it. So could you walk us through that part of that creation part of it?
Absolutely. So, I mean, there's been a lot of, or I've seen a lot of things about beliefs and belief structures. Beliefs happen somewhere, it's still up for grabs, but it's somewhere between 5 and 8. We create very strong belief structures that we continue to use to the very day until you have awareness around them. And you can imagine if you're 5 to 8, couple of things. One is they may be sort of faulty decisions we made. So, you're a child, you haven't experienced trauma, or just even sometimes it's a regular experience like a teacher or an adult saying to you, be quiet. If they say it like in a stern way, and then you take in that information and go, oh, my voice doesn't matter somehow, or, whatever you decide with that information. So beliefs start with an event happens, good or bad. You decide something based on that event, and then moving forward, you filter through information through that belief. Now, in my experience, everybody I've met has the same basic one, which is, I'm not good enough, I don't deserve, I'm not lovable. They're all sort of around that, like, I am not enough, right? And I've had people in my classes that, they'll tell me I had an amazing childhood. My parents were both loving and all the things. And yet I still have this thing. It still exists. And I think that's the human condition, is that we have this underlying idea that we are not enough. And from there, we make decisions. And so there's been a bunch of beliefs that are in place that are clearly doing just fine for us, It's these ones that stifle our what's possible.
So what you're saying is that through the lens of those beliefs, we start to create that world that we believe to be true, even if it's not. Yes?
Absolutely. Yeah, that was super concise and absolutely correct. And the filters or the beliefs that we have put in place because of these experiences are ours, right? And so my experience in this life and your experience are completely different. Unfortunately, somehow we sort of feel like everybody's having the same experiences. And this is where things like judgment come in, and, things like that we say, like, well, that's just common sense. Well, common sense is nonsensical, because my common sense and your common sense are very different based on my filters and your filters. And so literally these filters are what is showing us what is available and possible in our worlds. And we will continue to make these right, even when they aren't serving us, when we don't have awareness. And so we'll continue with this belief, thinking that it is absolutely correct, until we have the moment where we go, okay, enough of this. Maybe we have a pain point. We say, no, I don't want to feel like this anymore, right? So this is where emotions come in. So we have the underlying belief, then the emotion comes in to help with the perspective. So it's belief, we attach an emotion to it, and then we have a perspective about it. And so when the pain point is high enough, you'll typically do something about it. That's the awareness piece. And then we try to find a strategy or a tool to reorganize it. But often we don't get the awareness piece, other than we have the pain point. We try to make it okay somehow, and it never resolves itself until, somebody comes in and gives the feedback. And the thing is the emotional piece on top of that. Most people, like I was saying, they're having an external to internal experience, where it's like, this person did that, so they made me feel upset or sad or shamed or whatever the thing is. And the reality is obviously nobody else can make you feel those things. That's all you. And so those are based on the underlying belief. The emotion is triggering you. And that's when we look at the emotion, we go, oh, there's growth that is available there. Opportunity for growth there in that emotion. So when we are experiencing the emotion is telling us we have a filter in place that is making us feel ungood at this moment. Based on, and so the conversation goes from that person is making me feel this way to I'm having this emotional experience. I wonder where that's from, which is a very different experience, I think.
Erin, all of this sounds like a lot of work.
Yeah.
Like the peeling of the onion. I think that's why so many of us, inclusive of me for the longest time, didn't want to do the work, right? Because it given the fast-paced world around us, like, drive-throughs and all, and, things that we do online and all of those things, it almost feels like I wish that there was a quick solution. And I think people want that. People want a quick fix to the anxiety, to the depression, to the mental health issue, like whatever it is that they're dealing with. So I find what you're saying fascinating, because if the situation is tied to the emotion, is tied to the perspective, now I bring it into the world of business, and I'm reminded of, as a business owner, sometimes your money worries, in the business of that feast or famine, or, your volume isn't there, your revenue isn't there. Sometimes that could be stimulated from the mindset or perspective of scarcity, which may have come from something that may have happened in a certain age frame where something was observed or heard or something like that, right? So I love the way you're explaining how those things are connected. But what do you say to somebody who is a busy entrepreneur? They know they're feeling overwhelmed, because I know one of the things, a sentence you had said to me in our pre-call, was the addiction to overwhelm. And that I think about, since our pre-call, I've thought about it repetitively. It's like, wow, like, are we in that place as entrepreneurs, as business owners, not willing to put in the time to do the work, and then on top of it, expect a quick fix for something? And then what does that mean for an addiction to the overwhelm?
Yeah. So I basically told you the scientific side of what's happening. When I'm working with a client, though, it's bite-sized pieces, right? Like how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? No disrespect to any elephants, I would never do that.
Of course.
It is a process. It's not, and it isn't a lot of work, but I'll tell you what the outcome is. The outcome is you get to experience your life how you want to. And once I figured that out, it wasn't a huge process. It is a practice, though. I will tell you that. It is something that you have to make a decision many times over to change, just like any habit. And that's where the addiction piece comes in. Our brains are so fascinating. They love to take in information, categorize, file it away for the next time we can use it, right? The problem is that even so, as efficient as it is at processing information, it doesn't process the nuances. And because people are so complex, a seemingly same situation can have a very different outcome. And we don't ever take the time to go, wait, I used that old information to a seemingly similar situation and I got a different outcome. And the reason is because we're so complex and nuanced, we couldn't possibly know that this situation that looks similar is not the same situation. And so that's where the tweaking begins. It's like, yeah, we love to be that habitual. We like to take in the information. We like to do all the same stuff. We like to think about the same things over and over and over again. And that's where the addiction piece comes in. Most people think about addiction in terms of, drugs or alcohol or sex, or now it's, media, those sorts of things. It's the same process. It's the same. Addiction it's nuanced in that it is something that we don't feel we can let go of. It's not I have an attraction to it, but I can let it go. It's I have an attraction to it and I'm not able to move past it. And that's what's happening a lot of times for people who are anxious and overwhelmed regularly. It's the same thoughts over and over again. It's the cyclical mind going, oh, okay. So I'll give you an example. It's like a lot of people wake up in the morning and they go, rather than going, oh, it's a beautiful day out, they go, where did I leave off yesterday, right? So and if yesterday was not great, you can imagine you're not starting off at a good spot.
Yeah.
And we do all the same stuff. We get up on the same side of the bed. We go to the bathroom. We brush our teeth. We get the coffee. We, drive to work. All very unconscious, right? Because we're just like, doing the stuff. I mean, how many times did you drive to work without even remembering all the things, right? I remember I even stopped at the stoplight that was red, because you're just in the habit of all these things. Well, the mind does that too. And it does it with same thoughts over and over and over again. But we don't take recognition that those thoughts are happening because they're just part of the habit of the things that we do. And so a lot of the stuff that I teach people is just this disruption of those habitual thoughts, because those are the things that get us in trouble, is that same thinking over and over again. And then once we can stop that habit, which again is a practice, but it's not forever. It's not like that. It's like when you make a decision that you want to change something, you go about doing it differently, and then you keep doing it. And there's resistance, like tons of it all the time, up against it. Universe introduces other things to be in resistance to. And especially when we're trying to make a change. And then there is a breakthrough point. Right? There is a point where you practiced it enough where it becomes the new norm. So my encouragement is to know that there is hope, that when you decide you're going to create a change and you practice a new way of being, that you allow it some time. You've been practicing this other way of being for all these years. It's going to take a little undoing to get to the new way. And just be kind and gentle with yourself in that process, and just believe, like, it is possible. Carry the hope. My clients often are like, I heard your voice in my head. It said, keep going, and I just love those moments, because it's like, yes, I do want to help provide the hope, but you have all the answers within you. I don't have all the answers. I have my answers in me. You have your answers in you. And I want you to trust that it's there inside of you. If I could just give you that, starting off point in that direction, that's what would be meaningful for me.
Yeah, it's, I think the topic is so close to so many people's heart. And, I think that it's so easy to talk about the thoughts and being able to control the thoughts, or, being able to look at them, I remember I had done some training in the self-inquiry process by Ramana Maharishi. And he talks about being the observer of the observer. It's not even just the observer level, but, you become the observer of the observer. So I found that fascinating. And as you said, it was a practice that took months. I had to first become the observer of my thoughts. And I'll walk you through, Erin, what I did, because it's actually quite funny. Morbidly funny, not funny, but like scary funny. So I had to take a 1 minute. I had a blank piece of paper and a pen, and in 1 minute, I had to jot down everything that went on in my head for 1 minute. Everything, every thought, everything. And to this day, Erin, I still have the first piece of paper, which was, I'm a bad mother. I wasn't working properly. I didn't know how to take care of money. I have to go pay a BC Hydro bill. Like, it was just these sporadic, random things that were going on in my head. And I looked at the paper and I remember thinking, I am not mentally okay. Like, there's something freaking wrong with me. Like, to be this scattered, from thoughts of bad parenting to divorce thoughts to this thought to that thought. And this is all 1 minute, and the amount of bouncing around I did. And it was fascinating that I did this over 7 days. And what you see in the 7 days is the scattered thoughts then become sentences. And then sentences become a word. And then the words become a word. And then the word became a visual. And so the 7-day progression to the point at which I didn't have thoughts anymore. It would just be a visual of this or that or whatever that was, but it was a focused visual. So I think the idea of those runaway thoughts, those habitual thoughts, as you talk about, the how part of this is really difficult. And that's what I mean about doing the frickin' work. Right? It's not a blue pill here that you take and all of a sudden the thoughts are not there. So I actually had to build a friendship first with my thoughts. Like, when I started meditating first, Erin, like, I started meditation about 19 years ago. And when I remember the first time, I'm like, well, screw this. This isn't working, because all of a sudden, all the thoughts would pile into my head the minute I sat down. And I thought I had to resist them. I had to push them out. I had to have a clear brain. But a friend said to me, what if you embraced them? What if you said, you have 10 minutes to flood my head in this meditation, and after that, you're done? Like, what if you start to build that dialogue with your thoughts? And that really changed my meditative practice, around, because people keep telling us, positivity, have positive thoughts. And I'm like, what the heck is wrong with you? Like, we as humans are going to have thoughts. They're going to be negative. They're going to be ugly. Some of them are going to be really great. Some of them are going to be bad. But what if we just learn to embrace them and have a friendship with them so that we utilize them, not they utilize us, right?
I agree. This idea of positivity that is rampant in our societies is very detrimental. I often have this conversation with clients. I said, tell me the stuff. Like, quit trying to make it sound all good. We got to have a starting off point here. Like, if your life is a wreck, it's a wreck.
Yeah.
It's fine. Let's just talk about it. We're not going to ruminate on it. We're going to stay there. But let's be real about where we're at. And then we can move on to, how do I create a different experience? But you cannot candy coat, like some of my clients, they got a lot of stuff going on, spouses in rehab and, stuff and kids, and just, it gets messy, and it's okay to be messy.
Yeah.
I'm a super positive person, but do I have a bad day? Not usually, actually, but I do have bad moments, because I can switch that now, but that was a practice I had to put in place. Yeah. Otherwise it's like, you ask people, I had a really bad day. It's like, wow, like having an entire bad day, that's something to work on. Having a moment and going like, this sucks. This is where I'm at. This is this is how I'd like to see it differently. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Let's move from there. But yeah, you're right. I mean, just pretending like everything is okay all the time is exhausting. Mm-hmm. And it's not real. let's get real and get where we're at. And then from there, move, you know?
And Erin, it puts a pressure on people. Like, and the same concept of the positivity that drives me crazy. It's the same thing with purpose. You have to find your purpose. You have to find your calling. I'm like, what if you didn't have to find a purpose? What if your purpose was momentary? What if your purpose was, in this moment in time, this is what I'm going to do? Because we have so many external factors that cause mayhem, chaos, unorganization, add to our day-to-day stressors. Why put ourselves into this pressure cooker of defining who you are, what you want? And so every time somebody talks to me about purpose, I'm now starting to say, what if I don't need a purpose? What if my purpose is just in this moment? Like right now, Erin, as we're having this conversation, what if our purpose is simply to share your story in this moment and nothing more or nothing less than that? And then when we get off the interview, our purpose is going to change. And we might go back into our families. We may be cooking dinner. We may be doing things, whatever it is. So I find all these things add to the pressure cooker of being a human being.
I agree. Yeah.
Having said that, okay, I want to talk about the sign above your head that says enjoy life, because it has been flashing at me ever since we started talking. And I want to talk about that a little bit. I want to talk about the meaning of that sign for you, and then the correlation of that sign to anxiety.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on it just with what you were saying. Gosh, there's just so much pressure all the time about, showing up a certain way and, fulfilling my purpose and all of those things. And while I think some of them are important, they're not to be toyed with in that they're just some fly-by-night thing. You know what I mean? It's not like when I was growing up, you went and saw the guidance counselor and they said, well, you tested really good in this thing, so you should become a whatever,
Bank teller.
A what?
A bank teller. Mine was a bank teller.
Oh, really?
Yep.
I don't actually remember what mine was. I should probably try and revisit that. No, we make the mistake of thinking that we have all the time in the world. And while I like to tell my entrepreneurs that they have all the time in the world because they're in a rush all the time to get stuff done, the reality is we only have one guarantee right at this very moment. And if you are not enjoying this moment, then you are doing the wrong thing.
Yeah.
And so is there going to be moments in your life where things are not working out? Absolutely. But I found a way to find my joy and cultivate it on a regular basis. And that's what I like to teach people, because honestly, at the end of the day, not the end of the day, at the end of our life, like, we are not looking to amass more things, make more money, do all the stuff, check off all of our list of got all my goals. Like, we do not care about that. We are on our deathbed going, I wish I had spent more quality time with the people that I love, created deeper, meaningful relationships. And if you are not cultivating that as strongly as you are cultivating your career and trying to amass things, then you're missing the boat, because this life is beautiful and there are beautiful people in it, like every single one, every person. And when you stop being in reaction to people and circumstances and events, then you can see the beauty in others. And that's what this is all about, is quieting that mind so that you can be at peace in here, so that all the experiences out there are as peaceful as the one here for the majority of the time. And that's the thing. That is it. That is, purpose or not, or any of those other things. It really is. Can I create deep, meaningful relationships with people? Because I've created that meaningful relationship with me. Because that's the soulmate. It's this soulmate here that creates all of the soulmates out there. When I get right here, then I can have all of the jewels and the goods out there.
Erin, why do you, what do you think is relevant to leaders today, given post-COVID now? I think personally, I think there's going to be a new paradigm of leadership that's going to come out with, a new set of tools, a new set of techniques, a new set of characteristics even as to how leaders are now leading. So given everything that you've just said of the external, the internal, the internal, and the external, what do you think will change in leadership?
I think that, well, certainly environmentally, I just think that we're just not going to be in community like we have been in the past. We're not going to have the opportunity as much, or for various number of reasons, mostly having to do with money, to be in teams like we were in the past and those sort of things. And so that changes things for people. And, with the parents and things having to educate at home and all of that, it is forcing leadership to pull on some real human characteristics, like, the conversations that I have with clients and companies is more around like, production is down, or this high functioning person is not functioning the way they did before. And the conversations are starting different. For, like production is down, instead of going to that person and saying production is down, what's up? They're going, is everything okay? And we're becoming more human. We are not robots. We are humans, and we have lives outside of our business, even though we spend like a huge amount of time doing business, working in careers, having businesses or whatever. Like, where else do we have that much focused time? Like, I don't say, oh, okay, I spent 8 hours working, I'm going to go home and spend 8 hours with my kid. Like, I don't do that, And so that exchange needs to be legit moving forward. I think because of these things, people are going, hey, I feel differently about my life. It feels a little more fragile in some ways. So, I am no longer going to accept somebody in leadership above me that isn't willing to say, hi, how are you doing? It can't be all about the numbers, can't be all about the bottom line anymore. It really has to be like, we're coming back into community. What does that look like? And for me, that looks like, maybe I have a little nervousness about COVID or my kid going back to school or whatever. It's just going to have to be more humane. It just will not be the same in terms of that, I believe.
I find it funny that we're talking about being human, and every time I look at your screen, it feels like you're going to do a Star Trek kind of dissolving. Oh, it's so funny. It was like it reminded me of that Star Trek that beat me up, Scotty.
Sorry about that.
Oh, no apology necessary. It was just funny that it was interesting for that moment, And you're right, Erin. I think that. Being human, I think, is going to be an interesting paradigm shift in leadership, and showing vulnerability, being able to show how you're feeling and asking people how they're doing, whether or not, as you said, everything's okay. And you're right. I don't think people are going to tolerate that directive dictatorship kind of leadership anymore. I don't think that's going to be a way of the future. I think that there's going to be a high intuitive feeler, kind of role that's going to be really important going forward. So, yeah.
The leaders that are going to show themselves moving forward are going to have, high EQ, like they say, the emotional intelligence, understanding humans and what's important first, and then, and honestly, that's what I teach leaders anyway, because, again, deathbed stuff. We have this moment here. Everything else beyond this not guaranteed. So let's go and, make the most of of what's happening at this moment.
Erin, how, like this beautiful message that you have, how do you find leaders receiving it? Like, how do you find the reception of this message? Like, is it still taken as woo-woo, as spiritual, as touchy-feely? Like, how is the reception been to your message?
It's interesting. I find for me the most challenging and part of what I really love is that each individual is where they're at in their readiness and willingness to look at new information. Sometimes lots of resistance. And so, of course, my approach can be very different based on, what they've told me about them. But the reality is, you can call me woo-woo all you want. I'm super happy. I'm a super happy person, and I feel like I sort of nicked that part of my life into gear. And I think it is something that people want, And so sometimes people will be in resistance to some of the tools that I teach because they'll feel like, oh, like one of the things I teach is tapping or EFT. And I have one client who's like, I'm sorry, but I just can't do that. And I'm like, that's cool. I'm glad that you told me. And other people are like, this is interesting. I've never done anything like this, but, and the results follow. So it's like, if that one particular tool doesn't work for you, then I look at other different things and we take smaller bites and we, move along in a different pattern. And the reality is if you want to create different results, the only way to create different results is with new information. You cannot create different results with the same information. So, I usually sort of require that they be open to, like, you're going to hear some things that maybe you haven't heard before, and take them as you will. If they don't resonate with you, then move along, And and as you know, I mean, I'm not the right fit for everybody, certainly, I'm going to be the right fit for whoever it is that can hear what I'm saying right now. And, and that's totally fine and wonderful. And they should keep seeking. Like, that's what I'm looking for is I want to help people who are seeking find new information so that they can move to that next level of whatever it is they want to create in their life. So maybe it's the next job, maybe it's opening their own business, maybe it's shutting it down and having more work-life balance or whatever that looks like. And, I used to sort of like tiptoe around that whole like woo-woo thing. And sometimes I will preface what I'm about to say with woo-woo. But I'm pretty pragmatic as a person. And so I think the combination goes okay most of the time.
Yeah, I'm noticing recently, I would say over the last maybe 5 years, things have quite shifted that, even like I used to teach corporate mindfulness in 2015. And even then, it was still considered a woo-woo concept. And I used to laugh back then. I used to think mindfulness is the essence of everything that you do. That level of presence with each given moment is not you sitting there and chanting Om for an hour, and
Right.
you know what I mean? There's like this misconception that mindfulness means that I have to go get a special cushion and sit on that special cushion in a special position and chant whatever it is, whether it's Om or something, whatever the chanting is. And I used to find that fascinating. I used to think, why do I have to go sit on a cushion to do that? Like, why is it that we as humans just can't function that way through being present? Like, when I'm cutting my carrots, I'm cutting my carrots. And I'm thinking about, who pulled out the first carrot out of earth and said, oh, we can eat this darn thing. Do you know what I mean? And it's going to have carotene in it. And it's going to be beneficial to the body. Like, so even when I was little, Erin, I would contemplate like really deep questions about how the world existed. And it was like, I would always find it funny, like as an observer, I'd observe people and I'd be like, wow, do they know they don't have to do that way? However, even as early as 2015, even the concept of mindfulness, was considered woo. And even as recently as just not even a year ago, I had a client who thought, they didn't want to work with me because they thought that, she does woo woo work around mindfulness and, energy work and that kind of stuff. But what I am noticing that there is a shift. There's a shift in leadership where people want to be different. They're perceiving results from, say, Dr. Bonnie Henry, but the way that she's, presenting her content. They're seeing Jacinda in New Zealand presenting differently, and so they're seeing the results of just a different type of leadership, right? That, as I said, that very intuitive, feeler, compassionate, love type of leadership. So my
Well, and I would like to say, mistakenly, this idea of woo woo. I've been an entrepreneur for 21 years. Like, am I a little woo sometimes? Absolutely.
yeah,
And do I get it done? I absolutely do get it done.
yeah,
They are not exclusive, one or the other. They can exist. They can coexist. And I tell my clients that all the time. You can still have a relationship with your staff and still be the boss and still tell them what the deal is and what they need to do. You can do all those things and still be a human being and ask those questions and get down to business as well. So somehow they've been like separate, but actually the combination of the two is most effective, I think.
indeed. Well, one of the interviews that I did was with Dr. Angela Ford Runke. She's an Olympian, she's a scientist, and she's a quantum healer. And so as soon as she says quantum healer, everybody just kind of looks up. It's like, yeah, you can understand the physical and the non-physical realm at the same time, because you are an equation of energy. Like, you can't defute that, that you are an equation of energy. So if you are an equation of energy, you have to be able to understand the energetic presence as well, right? And whatever it is that we do. I have an outstanding question in my heart about something you said earlier around you coming out of it and now enjoying your life and being happy and, the life that you've created. So walk me through some of the golden keys that took you from that place of being, in recluse to this place of beauty where you are experiencing, enjoying, happy.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that I was that business owner that was literally felt like my hair was on fire all day long, every day, just running to, put out every fire and handle everything and all this stuff. And literally from, client to employee to, all the things. And I think I just got exhausted. I literally just like worked myself up to a frenzy, and I was sort of culminated with, I had decided I was going to sell my business, which was, for most business owners, it's a super difficult decision to make when you believe you are your business and you have some ego involved in, I created this from nothing and all of that. And who might I be without my business, which is something that I help a lot of people with, because making that separation is challenging. So I put my business up for sale. As it turned out, I was going through a divorce, and I started reading this book, and the book often escapes me the title, but it's a book where there's an excerpt for every day for a year. And you go and you read the excerpt, just, things to think about for the day. And I had this crazy experience where every time I looked at the thoughts or whatever for the day, the passage for the day, all I could see was this life is about joy. You are meant to be in joy. Like literally, like lifted off, like in bold, joy. joy, like every single day. And I haven't gone back to the book, but I guarantee you there is not the word joy on every single day. You know what I mean? It was one of those moments where it was like, pull your head out and take a look. Something is not right here.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, there is joy to be had here. So I was having that experience. And I had been introduced to a gentleman, Mike Dooley, who wrote the book Infinite Possibilities through a seminar company that I had worked for a while. And he had sent an email about an upcoming workshop. We went to the workshop, and I had no idea what it was about. I didn't care. I just needed something, anything to glom onto. I needed some hope. And I walked in, and it was an all-day seminar about the visualization process and the way he teaches it, and what he considers like the 5 things that are needed in order to create a visualization, which would create the things that you want in life. And I was so super motivated by the seminar that I went home. I called my broker, and I was like, look, I know my business has been for sale for 6 months. You're trying to have a conversation with me about lowering the price. And I was like, I just want to let you know, it's going to sell by the end of the month, and there's going to be a bidding war. And he was like, yeah, we'd all like to think that. And I was like, oh no, it's happening. Click. And lo and behold, a week later, no offers, no nothing for 6 months. A week later, bidding war. Went into 3 different bidding wars. He'd never seen anything like it. I got way more than asked. I mean, all the things. And I met the love of my life. And then I found, speaking of purpose, I found my purpose, which was to show other people how to find their joy and cultivate it on a regular basis. So it started there. And then I trained under Mike Dooley, and I taught his seminar for a couple of years. And through that process, I recognized, oh, there's something here. And while I love what he teaches and do believe in a lot of what he talks about, the feedback I was getting was, while you were following along in his workbook, you like 50% of the things you said are not in this workbook. Where did that come from? And it was that culmination of all those years of work coming together and just like synergizing. I went, whoa, like there's something here. And so it was that. And the teaching of that class and the really understanding the principles involved there and coming up with some of my own principles that were very clear. And then I had 2 profound things happen, 2 books that came into my life that profoundly changed the way that I saw this world. One was the book, A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle. In that book, I learned that I am not my emotions, that I am not my feelings, that I am that separateness that you spoke of earlier, that spectator is actually who I am and not all those filtered experiences and perspectives and all of that stuff. And when I was able to create that space between, then I started to feel peace. Then I had moments where I could take in the information and then go, oh, I'm responsible for this experience. And now I'm going to take a moment to take it in, and then I'm going to respond versus react. And the other book was The Seed of the Soul by Gary Zukav. That book rocked my world. It was in my life for a decade, and I was afraid to read it. I don't know why. I had it for years. It moved with me all over the place. And I moved to Portland, Oregon 2 years ago, and I picked up the book and I began to read it, and it made my heart sing. And I thought, he just explains things that I know are the truth for me. And the combination of those 2 books helped me to be able to cultivate on a daily basis the experience that I'm having. And so between that, learning that visualization process and adding it to a meditation practice that I already had created the joy, because the visualization is, you know, I wake up every day and it's the day in the life of everything I ever wanted.
Yeah.
Like, who wouldn't start off the day that way and be like, yes, this is amazing, right? Yeah. And I'm literally, like, in the beginning, I had a hard time with the whole visualization process. So I was like, I'm going to do something physical to get me into that, you know, like trigger me into that space. So I was like laying in my bed going, yes, this is happening. Yes, that happened too. And oh my God, I always wanted that. And yes, you know. And so you just get like all like into the feels, and it's like, whoa, like I can start there, and then I can use some of these other tools that I've learned help me to stay in that space. Is it all sunshine and rainbows all the time? Mostly, but not all the time, right? And so things come up, and then I readjust and I use my tools and go, okay, well, that was sort of didn't feel too good, but all right, next moment, you know.
All right, Erin. So in wrap up, 7.5 billion people, you have their ear for the next 5 minutes. What would you like to say?
I want to tell the world that this life is about beauty and love and kindness. And that comes from being in the present moment and grateful for all the beautiful things that are going on right now. And when we can take those moments to recognize all the things that are going well in our life versus the opposite of which is sort of how we were trained to be, this, oh, you know, sat in traffic and then this happened and that happened. Well, we can focus on, like, get so hyper focused on all the things that are going well in our lives, which, you know, from everything, like I have clothes, I have shelter, I've got food, I have water, I have people that love me, the beautiful sun was out today, nature, I mean, all these wonderful things. When we begin to focus on those things, then we get to see life very differently. And that, just that hyper-focusing exercise alone will change your experience in this world. We are meant to be in joy. It is our birthright. We are meant to feel that loving, beautiful kindness from others all the time. It exists. It's there for the taking, and it is your birthright, and that's what I want to do.
Erin, thank you so much. I think every time we speak, you touch my heart. And even in this conversation today, there's so much in what you've said that has inspired me to think different. So yeah, I just want to extend gratitude on behalf of the audience, as well as on, obviously, from me, for spending the hour with us and having these conversations. For the audience, please know all of Erin's contact information will be below the video. Please take a moment to, if you feel called to work with Erin, please give her a ring, give her a buzz, have a conversation. Every relationship starts with the conversation. And one of these days, I think, Erin, when we do another show on another topic, we'll have to share how I'm going to say friends, because it's almost like we've, talked to each other for like 10 minutes, and we're like, yeah, we've known each other for a really long time. So I'm really honored and blessed that you came into my life, as well as you were able to share your message with the audience. So thank you so much. All right,
I feel
everybody.
that I'm grateful as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Erin. All right, everybody, so that's it for the Dr. GB show. I will see if I can go bribe Erin to come on again, maybe in the next quarter or something, because we've got so much more to talk about. And particularly, I think I'd really like to talk about the topic of happiness. It's a topic that intrigues me, and no doubt intrigues our audience as well. So keep safe, everybody, and I shall see you next week with another wonderful guest. Thank you.